Alrighty, weekly outlook. So I guess the idea going into this week, right? We've made some pretty significant progress off the low, and I know last week was pretty darn slow. Um, even on this one, I guess big session, made the move in the morning and kind of just slow grind, right? And then now we have sort of reached the target on both and rejecting. Right? And by target, I mean you just pull up a profile and can just see that. We'll start with ES. Right? I mean, prior to last week, we can just see that you really had up here two pockets of value that we're deciding between. Right, this being the biggest one, arguably this being probably the one up here, although you can maybe extend it up to a tad higher, right? And then this was kind of no man's land. I kind of just thought this was sort of where we spent a little more time trading, spend some more time or more volume trading rather than down here really. So kind of accepted back over that, and now towards the highs of that. Um, Going into this week, right? Essentially, it's built that section out even more. And we really haven't had a pullback. We've had 1, 2, 3 gap up days. This one failed. These lower ones haven't. So no real pullback yet. Weekly's up, daily's been up. So goal for sellers is to take out a prior day's low at this point and keep it under, which really weren't able to do on this session and this one. They got a decent chance to do it tomorrow on a hot PPI print potentially. But we have an inside day going into tomorrow. So, it makes it pretty darn simple to trade. I know I'm currently long from 43s, 44s. Kind of a bit early, but that'd be the idea going into tomorrow. So, rest of the week, what are we really looking for? Right? I mean, if we ever do trade above 52.74, that's huge. Right? We have a. This is sort of where we made our little short-term balance up here. Right, kind of had a couple retests that failed. So if we can accept into this, I see all-time highs coming. But like I don't want to say guarantee it, but that's what I'm gonna be shooting for. Right, and you got a poor high up here, so that's the upside level 52.74 that they really need to get over. Downside, they gotta start one day at a time really, and just take out a prior day's low, and then follow up on during the following session, which they really haven't been able to. Probably this is ultimately their target, right? Although I don't think we still have 4 days left. It's only 120 handles higher. I guess we can go see it if we get a hot PPI and hot CPI print. Yeah, 52.15, sort of this point of control here, up here. 83, another point of control, sort of towards the lower end of this balance, and then a couple gaps, right? So downside, just take it day by day. If you want to be short, I guess you got to look to the daily and sort of play failures of levels. If you look at this though, right, we sort of have this level at 44, 45, and then 62, where it's sort of this upper end of where volume starts to taper off, and 44, 45, where it really starts to pick up and then starts tapering off thereafter. We're really not able to spend too much time trading above it. Right, once that changes, it looks much better to be long from even up here, right? Each time we typically just open higher just because Globex trades higher. Trade up to, sort of that where volume starts to really taper. A little shelf there prior to 74. And then it fails, right? And then you don't spend any of the rest of the session like remotely close to those prints. I guess this session did B period trades back up to that level, but it needs to start looking like these profiles are flipped around above at least 46, right? And we're not quite doing that. We're like barely closing above it. You're getting excess at lows and such, which is a good look, but I want this to look much stronger and just essentially make this lowercase b into a P-shaped profile, at least before I look to, be long size. If we could single out of here and balance out of here and do it above 74, even better. Makes it a little easier for us. But start with doing that above 46. So hopefully tomorrow's a little more volatile, but NQ same idea. Why can I not unmerge this? There we go. Right, so NQ's daily, sort of the same thing. NQ's point of control of the year is up here. ES is a bit lower, but NQ's is up here, and arguably the extremes of this balance, this pocket of values, what 120s, 130s up to 360, with the point of control being 305. And did we go see that on Friday? 360? No, we did not. Okay. Yeah, so we still haven't seen this 360 print. Right, and kind of just not getting anything done above this point of control either. In terms of a downside level, obviously 130 is the most important if we're just looking at the volume profile here. Kind of spotty below that. You got a couple pockets of value. Most of it's back here though, back in February and early March. We didn't really spend too much. We kind of just went straight through them. If we're looking at most recent stuff, most of the values built a lot lower. Right down here. Oh, actually, we didn't spend a decent amount trading here. Oh shit. All right. So like ES, take it day by day, take it level to level. I think NQ can be traded solely off of levels on the much higher time frame. You might not go see targets in a day, especially with this kind of action, but I think it's doable, right? And you just have smaller intraday levels for guidance, I guess. Today, inside day, really, really tight range. So similar to ES, just play the break of the high or the low, or I guess, if it does break and fail, just fade it. When I do say that, what I mean by that is, let's say we take out the low, right? You'd want to see it test and fail, or just continue imbalancing lower, and at which point you might just have to join in on an imbalance, or get in on a retest of an imbalance. But if this was to fail, right? If inside days, inside weeks, those types of moves fail, makes for a very, very move to the opposite end, right? Same thing applies to inside day high breaks and fails. Right? And you don't need to be early to the party on something like that. It's just not worth it. Right, I think levels remain the same for the most part going into tomorrow. Just watch the ones on the weekly for now. Last week's profile was pretty darn balanced. Missing maybe a little bit up here, which sort of today sort of filled in. Mm. Yeah, I mean, if you want to look for trades prior to the high or low breaking, 260 got a pretty important shelf there, and we tried bouncing off of it, made it excess for the most part each time we did dip below. And then, of course, 305 was sort of the ceiling, right? Once you gave it up, 305, 310. And that's just the point of control for the year, really. That's just sitting up there. So, you can look to make the trades off of get yourself early entries prior to the break of a little harder tomorrow, only because you got PPI followed up by a CPI the following day. So we'll definitely get a little more volatility hopefully during this session. But I guess we'll just play it day by day, really. Is there anything else? I needed to talk about CL. Uh, you know, I tried longing 77. Oh, was it? No, 78.50. Back here, it just screwed around with me so many times. Like it held decently. There were bids coming off it, and then you instantly, like, just out of nowhere, just give it up. Right, and then you ended up seeing this lower level at 77.84. Sort of a little bit of a shelf there before it really tapers off, and then now kind of just balancing, right? So I've after that session, I kind of just gave up on longing 78.54 and said I'm just gonna wait for this thing to balance out, and it's sort of just been doing that. It looks like it's been decent to trade if you're observing 79.50 and 77.84, but I guess I failed to see that and was watching 78.50. Yeah, so I'll continue letting this thing balance out. This has become pretty decent excess though, so I was looking for bids off of 78.50 today, never quite traded down there. Wasn't seeing enough bids coming off of 60. But yeah, I'm just gonna let this thing balance out a little longer. Yeah, because now it's kind of, let's see. Yeah. I mean, if it wants to make a move, it will probably be off of one of these extremes. What you really want to see if you want to get ahead of a move that takes us out of this balance would be just time spent, maybe a whole session, maybe half a session just trading, um, just above this, just building this part out. It's high of that balance. I did. Now I can. Well, with balances, and I know some people will some people just use the high and the low of sessions and call that a balance. Like, for example, uh, let's just say we have a 2-day balance, right? Obviously, inside day. Some people will say, right, we have a balance, right? Or better yet, this is probably a better example. Let's take the high here and just call this a 4-day balance, right? And I'll do that if the highs and lows are relevant enough, but I prefer looking at where where the bulk of volume is traded, right? So this makes it really easy, right? It's 260, and I guess you could maybe argue that it's up at like 180, 170-ish, but this is where it really starts to taper off, right? So 160 to like 260 is what I would consider balance, and then that's what you're trying to, if we are putting on the mean reversion playbook, that's what you'd look to play off of, right? Like in, let's say, today's instance, right? Really just paying attention to Well, obviously today or tomorrow I'll pay attention to the high and low just because we have an inside day, right? The high and low are what make it relevant. But if you're just looking at where volumes traded, that's where I'm really focusing on, right? If you want an early entry, let's say into tomorrow. So same with CL. Prior to this, 78.50 was, or I want to say 79.50 was much bigger and built out. But now we spent some time trading in there, so kind of just smoothing this part of it out. But this is sort of what I'd be focusing on if you do want to play CL 79.20 and 78.20s. Is that about it? I'm not gonna touch RTY. YM. Oh, they've been doing kind of decent. They printed an outside bar today. Yeah, no, we won't touch YM. Yeah, so that's what I'm really working with. So right now I'm long off 44s. Average is 43.80 something, but that's essentially off of just larger time frame shelf. Just prior to the inside day low break. 79.40, I think we did today. You tried in the morning. Kind of just traded back into the bulk of it. Now it's sort of towards the upper end. Yeah, so I know we're doing this on for starting Tuesday. I guess a weekly outlook for starting Tuesday, but I guess just join in on the strength off of the inside day low break, right? High or low break, or I guess fade the lack of strength. Um, yeah, I think we're at a pretty pivotal place in terms of, I thought last week we thought like 170s, 180s was going to be pivotal, and it took me out of the swing I had, but um, sort of the same idea here with this. If I had to pick a level, probably 44, 62. But just know that trading above 74 is your way to all-time highs. And once you do that, I'm going to be shooting for it. We consolidate around an extreme and whether it's high or low. Yeah, and that's one of the things is when you spend more time at one end of a profile, right? The odds of it breaking, start to increase. So that's, let's say for ES in this instance, I want to start spending more time above really, uh, after these two sessions, like 53, um, 44, right? If we're looking at the larger time frame level. Friday's profile didn't look too great. I think we just stayed below it for the most part. Today, I think we looked a little better, but I need the bulk of the balance to be above 44. Right, in CL, you'd probably look for, let's see. Yeah, you'd look for something like this, right? But above 79.20, um, or above 79.50. All right, so you'd want that to be up here or up here. Right, and then you can go specifically into that section, throw in a profile or something, and look to long off key levels there, or just, if you get a pullback down to that, I guess the more important level, 79.50, that's where you'd look to pull the trigger. Um, yeah, so unless we really get moving off of PPI or CPI, it's just hope we don't get another slow week. Today was a slow day. Historically, after a week of really, really low volume, you typically don't repeat the same. So yeah, I'm hoping for a little bit of a better week in terms of volatility. Any questions, comments? Let me stop the